Here is a Crown Aire, or what is it? Crown Aire from Newark, New Jersey. Crown Aire. It's a single-speed fan, and I think it's model FS-17. This is I have mixed feelings about this. Obviously this is an economy model, and when I used it the first time I thought it was abysmal in terms of performance. The second time I used it, I had used it in a window, and it actually wasn't that bad. These 7-blade blades tend to be not the best in this particular application, but they do seem to build decent static pressure, and that's why it performed pretty well in the window. So this became a curiosity recently. I saw a picture of a General Electric box fan, and the General Electric box fan had this blade set on it. Now this is not a GE build by any means, though it does kind of look like one at quick glance. It actually has an early Marco motor, which is kind of interesting. It has about 90% of the original legs. This one's busted, but it is still present. This one's busted on the front, which is kind of weird. I would have expected the back to break. And the cord just comes out like this and just gets jammed. I guess this provides a little bit of space so it doesn't get totally pinched, but that's kind of a lousy, cheesy design. There's a lot of elements to this that are quite surprisingly cheap. I thought that this would date back to like late 70s era maybe, but this is so cheap. I really think that it's considerably newer than that. So I want to take the guard off so we can get a better look at the blade. Maybe we'll pull it off and get a picture of the motor. I'm very curious to the shaft size of the motor, because if it fits on a GE box fan, it's got to be relatively small. I think those shafts they're less than a ½ inch. They might be a 5/8 shaft. They're fairly small. Although there's that rubber grommet that goes on them, so maybe the hole in the blade itself isn't that small. I don't know. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've had one of those apart. Very long screws for something that just goes into a 1/16 of an inch of sheet metal. The guard is made of a pretty decent plastic. It's not brittle, really, in the slightest. It's still pretty flexible. It doesn't look like it's yellowed at all. Though some of the slats have become kind of like stretched out. I'm not really sure what that would be from. It's kind of odd that it seems to happen almost randomly. If that was heat induced or storage related, I would have expected them to all be like that. And these are actually warped up, which is super weird. Alright, so here's the unit itself, and it's just a really weird looking thing. Looks like there's some paint on the blades. Oh no, that's coming right off. I got this from that letter H, and I thought he had serviced and cleaned this, but he does very good work. This is not, he would not have missed that and said, okay, it's done. So maybe he didn't clean it, I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty dirty inside. Well, that would explain why the motor sounds the way it does then. It probably has never been serviced. So it looks like a standard size Marco motor shaft, and the front of it's all chewed out for some reason. I wonder if that's related to failed attempts to take it apart. I don't want to get too into this right now because I don't have the time, but I'll take this clip off, and if it slides off with relative ease, then we'll see if we can take a look at the motor. If it doesn't, we'll revisit it at a future time when we clean and service. Okay, it came off pretty easily. Well, now that's confusing because the motor looks like it's brand new, but this clearly is high hours. So here's the blade, and I don't know if this is warped or what. It's probably warping, but it looks like it almost looks like it's designed to run in the opposite direction, or maybe be reversible, because this doesn't have a good scoop to it. It almost more like just kind of like smashes the air out of the way, which is not the way blades are supposed to work. This kind of reminds me of those Robeson units with the really thin blades, or the Holmes from the late 90s with the really thin blades. It's a similar thing where it's like an opposing scoop. It just doesn't make any sense aerodynamically. Yeah, I really feel like it would have actually moved more air like this. This seems a lot more aerodynamic to me to turn this way as opposed to work this way. That's interesting. I suppose we could always just stick the blade on backwards and see if there's any difference. It looks like the molding is like a really cheap material too. And it's like super flimsy. Yeah, this is really quite poor quality for the time. And it's still landslides better than what we got today, and it still works, so that certainly says something about it. But this is not really up to par. So the motor says Marco Electric Manufacturing Company, or Corporation, model 44PK3YL5, type Y-4, 2 amps, 115 volts, thermally protected. The 115 label would lead me to believe that this is fairly old, but I don't know. The quality just doesn't... I shouldn't tilt it back like that with those feet. The quality just doesn't seem right for 70s era. That's spinning free, but it sounds really dry. And it looks like the motor looks pretty much identical to the Marco motors we saw in the 90s. It might be a little bit thicker, maybe. Housing. Very interesting. Yeah, I don't see how this blade would have fit on a GE. I don't see it. Well, let's put it back on, and then we'll demonstrate the fan. Now, just for my curiosity, is it possible to put it on? It's almost like somebody chewed it out so we could put it on backwards. Yeah, it's on backwards. I don't see why It might not go down enough. Let's see. Oh, it does. It goes down enough to clear the guard, so I suppose it could be run backwards. I think I just dug a hole here though, because that seemed like it went on pretty tight. Yep, I could tell I was going to regret that as soon as I put it on. Now it's coming. It'll just take a minute. It doesn't help that the cage is so flimsy. I can't get a good grip on it. Okay. Well, let's put it back on properly. We'll see how it runs and we'll revisit this and we'll play around with it some more. I do find it very curious that the shaft is, or the front there is cut out like that. I really wonder why. It's one of the interesting aspects of working with this old stuff is sometimes you see different things done to equipment and there very well could have been a good logical reason why, but we may never know without talking to the person that did it. Alright, let's put the guard back on. Curious how it performs without the guard as well, because the guard is very, very dense. Almost looks like something that would come out of Canada. Those crazy super dense guards over there on some of those fans, like the oscillating fans. And why these 3/4 inch screws to go through a piece of sheet metal? So this is a 1-speed model, but thanks to this new contraption I have, we can test it on varying speeds, and quite frankly, if this was unable to be regulated, it would be pretty much useless to me because it's too loud on high. But with this now I can certainly use it and get a lot more use out of other fans that have a similar problem. Okay, we're going to be testing at 119.3 volts, and according to the motor it's 2 amps. According to the tag on top, it's also 2 amps. Well, we only have high and off, so here we go with the high. And it is horrifically out of balance. It's worse than some 3733 is. Look how bad that is. I'm not putting it in the center of the screen intentionally because the camera's image stabilization will try to take out the vibration. That's why I'm showing it off center like this. But yeah, this is just ridiculously out of balance. I can't even hold it still if I try. It's just shaking my arm. It's so ridiculously out of balance. But it's very noisy. It sounds like a beehive, and it throws a decent amount of air, but for the noise it's kind of underwhelming. It throws a lot out to the sides, more so than top and the bottom, which I suspect is related to that guard. But I will say that it definitely moves a high volume of air, and that's why it worked well in the window, combined with the static pressure. More so the velocity that's just kind of poor. There's hardly anything here in the middle, and then it picks up again on the sides. Yeah, the aerodynamics of this is just not correct. See how this is twisting like that? That means the air is not coming out straight, it's all convoluted. I don't know why the heck the air is going in the middle. That doesn't make any sense. This thing is just an aerodynamics disaster. I don't know why that's like that. Trying to keep the camera out of the windstream, but it's hard because it moves the air to the side so much. Alright, that's 2.4 the amps, 189 watts, with a power factor of 0.65. So it's drawing considerably above spec. Wow, look at that, that's awful. Wow. That's ridiculous. This really should not be used until this is balanced. That's just going to wreck the bearings. Totally out of clock. Something even looks off about the hub. I don't know if it's just a molding defect or what, but something looks off about the clock, even if you look in the center here. I don't know if it'll be viewable on the camera because the guard, but yeah, see, if you look right around there, you can tell something's way off in the middle too. So this is going to take a lot of effort to rebalance, partly because it's so far off and partly because there's so many blades. Alright, so that's the full speed that it has. Let's connect it to this variable speed controller and see what it's like if we can get some more reasonable speeds out of it. Okay, I'll slowly increase it just until it starts. Well, it's not on, so that might help to turn it on. Oh yeah, it definitely helped. That's cool. What do you know? So this is 20% power, and now you can really see how bad the clock is. That's terrible. No wonder it shakes so bad. Alright, so that is 0.18 the amps, 15 the watts. The power factor is 0.73, and unfortunately it doesn't seem to be moving just about any air. Okay, let's go up to 40%. See if we can get like a nice low speed out of it. Man, those bearings sound terrible. I'd say that's a good low speed. It's kind of similar to what a lot of the Lasco Marco motors did on low. The Lasco box fans with Marco motors, I should say. That is 0.65 the amps, 56 the watts, and the power factor is 0.71. Probably like a good medium right there. That's 1 amp, 84 the watts, power factor is 0.71, and that's about 65%. I feel like once we go faster than this, we just get more noise than anything else. This is moving a reasonable amount of air with a reasonable amount of noise. Thing we'll do, which is just a curiosity for me, we're going to put the kilowatt meter after the voltage regulator, and we're going to run it at 115 volts exactly, which is what the motor's rated for. I don't know why I said this is a curiosity for me. It's a curiosity for probably everybody watching this. Alright, so that's 119. We'll tone it down to, it's too far. Oh, actually, probably got to put the load on it first because it's going to drop. That's 115.6 the volts versus 120. There's a very, very slight difference, but it's not much at all. Those bearings are a disaster. I'm definitely not going to use this until we look at the bearings a little bit, or a lot. But it's an interesting fan, not the best performance wise, and it definitely seems like it was a very cheap economy grade model, to not even have multiple speeds, is like just totally bottom of the barrel, as junk as it gets at the time. But again, this is still much better than what we have today in terms of build quality, even though it was junk at the time. And this should provide some interesting experimentation. I'm very curious to flip the blade around and see how the performance compares.